Hi, this is Greg, and welcome to the Leadership Excellence channel. In previous videos, we've discussed the importance of personal leadership. If you didn't get the opportunity to view those videos, I put a link in the comments section below. They are entitled Just What is Personal Leadership, Parts 1 and 2. In this video, I would like to share with you a pre-recorded webinar I had with some clients a few years ago. The webinar was entitled The 12 Principles of Personal Leadership, and all of the principles were taken from the book Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit, The 12 Principles of Personal Leadership. It's available on Amazon.com. So here today is part 1. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you find it beneficial and enlightening. With Karen Standring. Karen?
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Fantastic.
Tell us about yourself.
My name is Karen Standring. I am a marketing coordinator for an architecture firm, and I feel that one thing I'm good at is breaking things down and making them simpler. Taking something
great.
complex and breaking it down.
Okay, excellent.
So,
Very good. Thank you, Karen.
you're welcome.
Judy, how about yourself?
My name is Judy Fayer. I am the controller for a mechanical contractor in Ohio. The one thing I feel I do well is my attention to detail.
Great, very good. That's something to be proud of. It's amazing how many people I run into who are disorganized and confused. Years ago, I knew an engineer at NASA, Cleveland, Ohio, has a NASA facility. I think it might be the oldest active NASA facility there is, and he used to tell me that the difference between an amateur and a professional in any field was attention to detail. So that's a very admirable quality. All right, here's the icebreaker for today. A friend has just given you a gift of $86,400, but there's one important condition. You must spend it all tomorrow in one 24-hour day, or the remainder of that $86,400 is forfeited. You must use it up, or it's all gone forever. So here's my question. 3 questions for all 3 of you. Number 1, how much of it would you spend? Number 2, what would you spend it on? And number 3, why would you spend it on the activities that you've chosen? Karen, why don't we begin with you? How much of that $86,400 would you spend?
I would spend all of it, probably.
Okay.
I would give some away as gifts to help people who are struggling in certain financial conditions, close family and friends. And I would probably use the rest to pay off my debt.
Okay, great.
Debt-free.
That sounds like a good use of the money. That's great.
Yeah.
How about you, Judy?
I would also probably spend it all, and I would spend it on bills and then to travel.
Okay. Excellent. That's a good use of $86,400. How about yourself, Jill? Well, we've got the icon that Jill is connected, but somehow her microphone isn't quite connecting to the system here. So that's okay. We'll let you continue to just listen in the background, or if you're able to get online with a microphone, let us know, Jill. The reason I ask this question is very simple, and the reason is this. Tomorrow, you'll be given a real gift, unlike the fictitious gift, the scenario that I just had. Tomorrow, you'll be given 86,400 seconds to proactively live your life. And once this day is over tomorrow, it's gone forever. You cannot take those seconds and pass them on to the next day. You have to use them up tomorrow. And you can choose to focus on your business or your family or your friends or other high priority items that you've chosen. Or you can choose to focus on unimportant items or even waste the time away. But once those seconds are gone tomorrow, they are gone forever. So I encourage you to choose wisely. Enjoy your gift of 86,400 seconds today and tomorrow and make the choice to get the most out of your day. Let's begin by discussing what personal leadership is. Personal leadership is when you choose to seize control of your life and your own path in life, knowing that there's a default mission statement that takes over if you do nothing. We'll talk about that default mission statement a little bit later on. But everyone on earth has a mission statement. The difference is you either choose and build your own, and you take an active part in your own life and direct and guide your own dreams, or by default, another mission statement is going to take over your life. The advantage of having personal leadership and developing your own personal mission statement, having your own active goals to support it, is it will help you to have a strong moral and ethical compass. You'll know where you're going in life. You'll have direction. You'll have goals that are meaningful because they are directly tied into what you say that your mission is. It will also help you to accept accountability and responsibility, because sadly we live in a world today in which victimization has taken over many areas of our world, and all victimization does to us is it makes us powerless. It tells us that we don't have the ability to choose, that we don't have the ability to make decisions ourselves, that we basically are victims of our parents or our school system or our employer or whatever. And victimization is a very insidious problem because it basically makes us powerless if we accept it. So we're going to talk about personal leadership. It's an inside-out approach. As Stephen Covey would say, quote, private victories precede public victories. You can't invert that process any more than you can harvest a crop before you plant it. It's inside out. So personal leadership begins on the inside with personal accountability, self-mastery, and emotional intelligence. Of course, emotional intelligence is the ability to remain calm, the ability to think things through in a reasoned and balanced fashion, and not to underreact or overreact to situations when they arise. I'm sure you've heard of Mahatma Gandhi. He was rather an incredible individual. He, without a single soldier, was able to make the freedom of the Indian nation possible from one of the greatest nations on earth, which was the British Empire. And he did it without a revolution, without firing a shot. He did it through peaceful nonviolence. And this is what he had to say, and it ties in very well with personal leadership. He said, quote, you must be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to be a leadership, if you want to be a leader in your company, if you want to take leadership roles in your community, in your family, it all begins by changing the inside the way that we are. And then once we do that, that is reflected in how we act and how we lead, and that has a powerful example and influence on others who work around us. Something else Gandhi said, and I'll quote, he said, as human beings, our greatness lies not so much in being able to remake the world, that is the myth of the atomic age, as in being able to remake ourselves. And that's what personal leadership is. It's when we make the choice to remake ourselves and guide our own lives. So again, why is personal leadership essential? It provides balance in life, and it helps us to avoid excesses and obsessions. And if you don't have a game plan for your life, if you don't have a mission statement, you basically are going to drift. And in time, you're going to acquire addictions, you're going to acquire obsessions, excesses in order to try to cope with life. Personal leadership helps us to avoid the victimization myth, as I talked about just a few minutes ago, and we take responsibility for our own lives, for our own decisions, and we stop blaming others. Personal leadership gives us a priority order in our life. We decide what is important to us and what the priority should be, whether it's family or whether it's work or play or community or spirituality, whatever is important to you, you learn to create a priority order in your life, so you make sure that you focus on those things that are most dear and most important to you. So the first thing we're going to discuss is principle number one, the right visionary goals. And much of the webinar today that we're talking about is going to be focused on principle number 1. Near the end, we'll briefly go over number 2 and number 3, but we have to have the foundation of what goals are, why they're important, and how they relate to our personal mission statement. A personal achievement comes through having visionary goals. I like to say that an unwritten goal is only a dream, and a goal without vision is a fantasy. So we have to write down our goals. When you write something down, it becomes meaningful to you. It's the same reason that we take notes when we're in an environment and we're in an educational setting. We tend to take notes because putting something down on paper helps it to be more deeply imprinted in our minds. Anything we do in our society that is permanent or has value to us is done on a document. When I bought my home, before I began making mortgage payments, I went and signed a document, and it said, this is what I am committed to do. This is what's important to me, which in that case, of course, was home ownership. So our goals need to be written down. Our goals also need to have vision. Vision is a mental picture that prods us and it motivates us. It's an inspirational snapshot of a desired future, so that when we close our eyes and we think about a goal that we want to achieve, it excites us, it inspires us, it motivates us, and vision is very important, especially when times are difficult, when there seem to be a lot of challenges and a lot of obstacles in our way. Vision is essential for us not to give up on our goals. Goals basically fall into 2 types. There are long-term goals that take many years and great effort to achieve, and these are goals that may take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to achieve. And then there are short-term goals. These are the smaller targets or the stepping stones to achieve our long-term objectives, those long-term goals, and they make our large goals realistic, and they provide satisfaction along the journey. If you make a goal that's large, that seems so far away, it's hard to stay motivated. But if you take that long-term goal and you break it down into small, digestible steps, every time you achieve one of those little short-term goals, every time you take a step and complete it, you feel a sense of fulfillment, a sense of accomplishment. Hey, I'm heading towards my goal. I'm heading towards the target. I just completed this little objective. And that gives you the encouragement and the motivation to continue to go forward. Have any of you ever heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Who knows the answer to that? No answer? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. And the same is true with our goals. No matter how big a goal is, you'll be overwhelmed and discouraged if you just look at the end result of that large goal. But you will keep yourself motivated if one bite at a time, one stepping stone at a time, you keep moving forward to achieve that goal. So where do most people go wrong with goal setting? Well, a number of reasons, and here are some of them. Number 1, the majority of people don't establish goals. Now, I realize, and I've done presentations in front of high school students, I say, how many of you have goals? And they raise their hands. But when you ask them to define what that goal is, you realize that it's really a dream that they're calling a goal. It's nothing that's ever been established. It's nothing written on paper. It's nothing that's part of a plan. It's nothing in which they're moving in a particular direction to reach that goal. What they call goals are just basically their dreams. Many people create goals that are too large. And again, if you create a large goal, which is a wonderful long-term goal, if you don't break it down into those steps we talked about, you will soon feel overwhelmed, and you're going to get discouraged, and you're going to quit because you're going to think that it's beyond your ability to achieve it. Again, most people don't write down their goals, and because they don't do that, they don't make that commitment on paper. The goals they have remain vague and nebulous dreams, usually something that'll never happen. And then people often have goals that are contradictory and goals that compete with one another. For example, I knew an individual who had a goal to save up, quote, as much money as I can for retirement, end of quote, yet he had another goal to go out and buy a new $70,000 BMW. Well, there's a problem there, and that is those two goals are competing with one another. And that's another reason why people have problems with goal setting. Most people establish a few goals, usually they're unwritten, that typically have no central purpose, and their various goals are usually built around a want. Like, I want to be a millionaire, or I want a big home, or I want to move to a geographic region of the country. They're desired because of a want, and they're not part of an overall plan, which is why a personal mission statement is so important. So their goals tend to be fragmented and disorganized, like the example of the individual I told you about who wanted to save for retirement but is spending money like water going through his fingers. They tend to be fragmented and disorganized. And a lot of people go wrong with goals because they are not SMART goals. So what is a SMART goal? A SMART goal is specific, meaning in a paragraph you state who, what, when, where, and why this goal is important to you. It has to be specific enough to have real meaning and clarity to you. It has to be measurable, meaning you have to set those targets. You don't know what the score is. You don't know if you're being successful if you don't keep score. It's like playing a game. And the only way you do that is to have a measure, to have targets so you can see how well that you are doing. That goal has to be attainable. That's the A in the SMART goal. It has to be attainable so that you can plan each step with smaller, achievable, bite-sized goals. And the goal has to be realistic, meaning are you both willing and able to work at that goal? If you're not willing to commit yourself, and if you're not willing to sacrifice something to achieve that goal, you are never going to get there. So it has to be realistic. You have to count the cost. Also, it has to be tangible. Too many people make goals that are vague. You need to be able to experience it with one of your senses. Taste it, touch it, smell it, see it, or hear it. And that makes a goal tangible. So goals need to be SMART goals in order to have meaning for us. At this point in time, I'd like to encourage you to take a look at the handout that I emailed you on your goal planning sheet, because we're going to talk about the process or the way to make goals that really work, to establish goals that really happen, goals that you can fulfill, goals that you can achieve. Because like New Year's resolutions, millions and millions of people claim that they have goals, and they start out with the best of intentions, but rarely do they actually achieve what they desire to achieve. So take a look at this goal planning sheet. I'm going to talk about the sample. The reason I give samples is so that it can help you in establishing your own goals in the future. I want you to begin thinking about goal setting, because we're not going to create goals for the next week. We'll be working on our personal mission statement, but I want you to begin thinking of goals now that you want to establish for the rest of your life, either for your career or your family or your personal life, whatever area is important to you. So first of all, if you'll take a look at page 1, a goal needs to be a SMART goal. It needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, tangible. In this case, it was an individual who realized they needed to work on creating a health program. So their goal was very simple. In 8 weeks, establish a habit of walking at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That is a SMART goal. Simple, to the point, something that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and tangible. The next thing you want to do to make sure that you're keeping yourself motivated about the goal is to write down both the benefits from achieving your goal, why it's important to you, and or the loss to be avoided by achieving the goal. Now, in the case of this individual, they knew that the achievement would be more energy and better health. It would probably increase their longevity. Their productivity every day would increase because they would feel healthier and better about themselves. And the loss to be avoided was a loss of energy, increased illnesses, a shorter lifespan, and other negative attributes if they didn't begin to make some changes in their life. When you go to page 2, this is an area that most people don't think about when they establish a goal, and that is the possible obstacles and possible solutions. Most of us know what we're like, and we know inside our hearts why we procrastinate or why we don't do the things that we want to do. And what this does in advance is it asks you to write down the possible obstacles that are going to come your way to stop you from achieving that goal. In this case, this individual had 3 obstacles: procrastination, excuses, and a problem with time management. And in his case, he wrote down solutions, 2 solutions in advance to overcome those obstacles that might arise. So he was thinking through his goal, and he was thinking through the kind of problems that are going to arise to try to stop him from achieving it. Now take a look at page 3. This is important as well. Remember how I said you need to take a large goal and break it down into digestible steps? In this case, he's taken that goal that he had on page 1, and he's broken it down to 7 digestible steps. If I recall correctly, when he went through the program, I think these were all 1 week apart. This was a program that I teach called the Effective Personal Productivity Program, and it's 7 weeks long, and this was his goal for the program. And every time we would connect on that class, he was always excited because he was checking off each order, each weekly attainment of achieving his little goals in order to overall reach his major goal. This is how you make something hard very easy. You just take those small, digestible stepping stones and you cross them one at a time. Another thing that's important about goals, you'll see in the middle of the page, is who needs to know about this goal. Remember already a couple of times I've talked about accountability and responsibility. In this case, he felt that his wife, and he had a mentor named Tony, needed to know about this goal, and he asked Tony to call him every week to check up on his progress and to say, how are you coming with your walking program to improve your health? And he also tracked his progress. He created a little chart, and he put check marks every day when he would meet that requirement that he had established for that week. And then finally, there's something that you have to reassure yourself, and that's in the bottom of page 3. Does this goal support my values? Is it part of my mission statement? And is it part of who and what I am? And the answer to that should be yes. Is it worth the time and the effort and the money to reach this goal? Again, the answer has to be yes. If the answer is no to either of those 2, then frankly, we need to scrap that goal because you're not going to put much effort in it at all. And then the final page, page 4, talks about something that is very important, and that is positive affirmations. Positive affirmations are declarations we make to ourselves of something that we expect to become true or that we desire to live by. They give us the confidence, the determination, and an attitude of a positive expectancy that that is going to happen. And here's an example that I have on this PowerPoint slide. I am good at my job, and I believe in my ability to achieve my goals. Again, you'll notice on page 4 of this handout we were looking at how he created 3 positive affirmations that he would repeat to himself. And here's the key to creating your own positive affirmations. First of all, you have to compose them yourself. They're not as meaningful if you're just reading someone else's. If it comes from your heart and your mind and it has special meaning to you, it will have a deeper impact in your life. Use the first person pronoun I. You can't make affirmations for other people. You can only make positive affirmations for yourself. And it works best by using the present tense. I am. Not I shall be or someday I will. I am. Because you have positive expectancy. You are beginning to make those changes now. You have started the process of changing. You are already heading in the right direction. You have every right to say, I am. You have started the journey. Also, state affirmations positively. Rather than statements like, I will not do such and such, say, I can achieve such and such. So make sure that you state the affirmations positively. And repeat aloud to yourself in the morning your affirmations while you're getting ready for the day. A good time is if you drive to work alone. Repeat your personal affirmations while you're in the car and driving. I keep my affirmations inside of the my wallet, but for a while I even had it pasted on my car dashboard when I created some new ones until I could remember them and recite them without a piece of paper. And when I would drive around, I would repeat those affirmations out loud. And it's very important in order to get us to believe, to understand that we need vision in our lives. We need to picture the person that we want to be in our minds. Everything is created twice. As Stephen Covey says, and he's absolutely correct, everything is created twice. First, it's created in the mind, and then it literally happens. If you look at an architect's office, I think it was Karen who said that she works for an architectural office. If you walk into a building and you see, oh wow, there are walls, it's a brand new building, there's a ceiling, there's carpeted, this is really beautiful. They made this building very lovely. Well, that may be true, but you know, it was first designed on paper. The first time that building was created was in an architect's office. It was created on blueprints. And then secondarily, it was literally created. It literally happened. And the same is true of our goals. Through a positive affirmation, step one is you begin to think and live the affirmation. And then as you work on your goals, that affirmation, along with other forms of visualization, will prod you and promote you to allow that goal to occur. Another form of visualization is to use physical objects, a picture of your goal or a sample of your goal. Put it on the corner of your desk to remind yourself why that is so important to you. Again, it can be displayed at your desk. It can be something that hangs on a wall to remind you of your goal. There is a picture of a building that I have hanging in my office as I turn over here and look to the left. It's the building that I hope my company is in someday. It's been an empty building for 3 years, and it won architectural awards when it was first built about 10 years ago. It is a beautiful building, and due to the economy, unfortunately, the original owners went bankrupt, and it's been just sitting there empty. Hanging on the wall reminds me of why that goal is important to me. It stirs up my passion. It reminds me and excites me that someday I would like to have my company in that building, and how proud I would be to be able to be located in that building. So visualization is very important to achieving our goals, whether it's a positive affirmation or it's a picture or a sample or something that is tangible that we can display in our office or on our desks to remind us why that goal is so very important. Now, I've been talking a lot about goals, but I have to tell you that one reason most people don't achieve their goals is because they get the cart before the horse. Before you create a single goal, you have to do something else. You need to create a personal mission statement. And that's what a good part of the rest of our seminar is going to talk about today. Why do you need a personal mission statement? It's because this is your constitution that reflects your purpose and your values. It focuses your energies and your resources on a common cause, on a common purpose that you state in writing is important to you and that reflects who you are and why you are in the world. It provides a sense of orientation. You know, I went through a organization a year ago. I went through an organizational crisis in which I had some very difficult decisions to make regarding what I would do with this organization. And it's because I had a personal mission statement hanging on my wall. I could have made a decision one way or another. I could have made a decision to stay with the organization or to depart from the organization. But when I picked up my mission statement and I read what I had written down regarding who and what I am, the decision was instant. The decision was very clear not to compromise on my values because it provided me a sense of orientation. This document that I wrote from my own mind said who and what I am about. So it makes your decisions clearer in life. It also unifies the fragments of your life. You know, our lives are very fragmented. We have a work life. We have a family life. Oftentimes we have a, recreational life, might be a whole different group of people. Some of us are involved in our communities. And because of that, our lives tend to be fragmented. And what a personal mission statement does is it helps to unify all of those fragments of your life around a central purpose and a central cause. It defines what you value. It becomes your moral compass, so that when your life hits a crisis, when something comes up that you didn't expect and you have to make a challenging decision, it guides you and helps you to make the right decision according to what you said your moral compass is. It helps to magnify your belief system, what you stand for and why. It is outlining your essential mission in life, what you say are the things that are most important to you and what you're all about. And then it helps outline what your personal responsibilities are and your commitments and your obligations as a human being and as a person to achieve those things. So a personal mission statement helps you to answer a very important question that only you can answer. And here it is. Am I truly living, or am I being lived? You see, have I decided where my life is going? Am I choosing? Do I have direction? Do I have a plan? Or basically, am I allowing someone else to direct my life? And that's why a personal mission statement is so important. Do you realize that our culture has a default mission statement for you if you don't have your own? And here it is. It's basically to conform to society and its values, whatever those values are, because they change every generation. If you don't have your own default mission statement, then the one that's already been established for you is conform to society and its values. Choose an addiction to cope with life. The default mission statement says life is hard, so therefore choose some type of an addiction to get through the day. The default mission statement says seek power and money and toys, because he who dies with the most toys wins, and try to control the lives of others. And finally, the default mission statement says use others and blame them when things go wrong. Blame your parents, blame your employer, blame your children, blame your church. Just blame everyone else when things go wrong. Simply drift and bob and float through life rather than making your own choices. So the question is, do we want to live by a default mission statement that exists, that's been set up by our culture, or do we want to make our own decisions and have direction for our life? This is the totality of a default mission statement. This cartoon here, their mission statement is whatever. And he says, that's our mission statement. We wrote it the same day we switched to decaf. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people, their personal mission statement is whatever. Meaning, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to float and bob in the ocean and let the currents take me where they will, rather than making my own decisions. We also had another handout, and that was the handout for the template regarding your personal mission statement. And as you look at it, you will notice that it is broken down into 4 particular sections. Here they are. Here are the 4 main parts. And the reason we're going to go over this is your assignment for the next class is to begin writing a draft of the first 2. Here are the 4 main parts. Moral and ethical values. And again, I've given you a sample of someone else's personal mission statement for you to look at to get you started. But please realize that this is your mission statement. It shouldn't look like anyone else's. You are a unique, gifted person, and your personal mission statement should be unique. It should reflect who you are. So the first of the 4 main parts are moral and ethical values. The second are personal family goals. And it often relates to the fact that we are either parents or we're a spouse, we might be someone's child, and what our family goals are in fulfilling those roles. The third area is personal career goals, the job you have now, where you might like to be within your organization, how you might like to grow to another position or another career, the whole purpose that you work. It includes the skills that you would like to develop to further your career. And then the fourth main part are personal life goals. And this includes continued education, developing your talents as a human being, maintaining your health, serving others, having a positive attitude, acquiring and developing loving relationships, giving back to others, philanthropy. So that fourth area includes our personal life goals aside from our career and our family. So to create a personal mission statement, here are some things that you need to keep in mind. Again, this is yours only. I want to encourage you to personalize it for you. Don't simply duplicate what someone else has done. It needs to come from your heart because it will only motivate you and inspire you and energize you when you write it yourself and when you personalize it for your goals and your life. Make it as short or as long as you want, but I encourage you to try to keep it within the confines of the template that I sent you because you can take that and you can hang it on the wall. My personal mission statement hangs on the wall of my office and I review it about once a month. I pull it off the shelf and I take a look at it and reorient my mental GPS to realize and look at where I'm at and where I'm heading. Work on it until it inspires you. So I'm going to ask you to begin creating a draft of it this week, but continue to work on it until it absolutely inspires you. Ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? And it should reflect not just the way you are today. Remember, it should be visionary. It should be positive. It should be an affirmation. It should not reflect just the way that you are today, but what you desire to be, what you hope to achieve tomorrow. So that is very important. Now, what should you do with it? Well, it should be written and made public at home. It should be reviewed at least once a month. Take it off the wall, say, how am I doing? Am I headed in the right direction? And reaffirm the fact that this is your mission statement. It should provoke honest self-analysis, and it should be allowed to be rewritten as we grow and as we change. Are there any questions at this point that any of you might have? Any questions anyone has? No questions whatsoever? Okay, we'll continue. The next thing we want to focus on is getting the most out of life, what some people call time management, what we might call productivity, we might call our priorities. And here is the first important step in getting a better use of your time. There is not now and will never be enough time for all the worthwhile and important things in your life that you want to do. I want you to think of all the places that you would like to see, all the books you would like to read, and the people you would like to meet. If you accept this fact, you are on your way to choose the most important priorities and finding greater happiness in life. If there's not enough time to do all the important things you want to do, then you have to begin choosing those activities that are important and valuable to you and separating them from those that are not important to you. Let's take a minute to talk about hippos and lippos. Hippos are high payoff activities in your life according to your values and your goals. Their characteristics are, number one, they are directly related to your goals. Number two, they can't be delegated to someone else. you have to complete them yourself. And number 3, they're usually unpleasant, they take a lot of work, they're difficult, and they may even be risky. Those are the hippos, the high payoff activities in our lives. But we also have lipos. These are low importance payoff activities. And usually they offer very little in return. They're not related to our goals. Oftentimes they're comfortable and they're uncreative. Usually they're not risky, but often they become a habit, something that we just do because we've been doing it for so long. They're usually routine. And if we sit down and look at them, oftentimes they are trivial. They might have had meaning to us 5 years ago or 10 years ago when we started to do them, but we've grown in a different direction. And they no longer are valuable to us. They offer very little in return. And we all have these things in our lives. So how can you balance your life to redeem time for your own personal needs, your professional needs? Learn to separate the hippos from the lipos in your life and focus on the hippos. As a matter of fact, when you discover and you analyze your lipos, eliminate some of them. Stop spending so much time on them, and you will be able to redeem time in order to focus on the things that truly are important to you. And part of this is learning to kindly say no to yourself and no to others as they bring lipos to you and they try to delegate or they ask you to do a lipo, something that really is of no value. You know, we won't reclaim time by looking for large blocks of time. That's not going to happen. But we can reclaim time by looking at small pieces of wasted effort. And here's a couple of examples. If you save 30 seconds every 5 minutes, some habit that you have, something that you do, part of your work style, or part of what you do at home, how you spend your evenings, if you save 30 seconds every 5 minutes, by the end of the day, you will have saved an hour. Here's my favorite one. If you reclaim 15 minutes a day, think of an 8-hour workday, just 15 minutes a day doing something that is not valuable, something that's habitual, something that no longer has any value. If you reclaim 15 minutes a day, you gain an extra 2.25 working weeks per year. So use your time wisely and begin to separate the hippos from the lipos. So what is good and effective time management composed of? Well, I'd like to give you a definition. Many people strive to be efficiency, and that's a good quality. Efficiency is doing many things right, and that's good. But effectiveness is doing important things right. It's separating the hippos from the lipos and focusing on the things that truly will make a difference. That's the difference between effectiveness and mere efficiency. So we want to go beyond efficiency and begin using our time effectively by focusing on the truly important things. I want to give you another way to look at this. I want to define the difference between urgent and important. If you look in the dictionary, the word important is an adjective, and it means of much significance or consequence. On the other hand, the word urgent is also an adjective, and it means pressing, compelling, or requiring immediate action or attention. Know the difference and don't let urgent control your time and control your effectiveness. Important is something that is of much significance and has a consequence if you don't complete it. Usually urgent is when someone else is trying to get you to do something that truly doesn't require much significance. You oftentimes can put off what supposedly is urgent 15 minutes, a half hour, 1 hour, in order to truly focus on something that you're working on that is important. And what most people allow happen are they allow all the urgent fires of the day to consume all of their time, and therefore they have nothing left to dedicate to the really important, significant aspects of their job. So there is a difference between urgent and important, and I encourage you not to let urgent control your time and your effectiveness. Now we're going to quickly talk about principle number 2, which is continuous education. There are two types of lifetime education that are very important. First is our formal education. This typically ends early in life, often becomes obsolete quickly, and is mostly theory. And if you have attended college like I did, you soon realize 5 years or so after you get out of college that most of what you learned has now been replaced, has been upgraded and updated by new software, by new thinking, by new ways of doing things, so it quickly became obsolete. But what's more important is continuous learning. That is an attitude in which you realize that learning occurs during a lifetime. And you invest in yourself in training like webinars, like community colleges, like classes taught at the library. You invest in yourself during your lifetime to renew and expand your knowledge. And of course, continuous learning includes real life experiences, which usually is a lot different than formal education. Education is important to personal leadership because it gives us the knowledge and wisdom to reach our goals. Virtually every goal requires some knowledge. It requires a certain degree of education in order to achieve that. It's like if you have a goal to invest a certain amount of money into the stock market, you better have prepared yourself with the education of knowing how the stock market works, of knowing how to do research to buy the right stocks. So again, education is very important to personal leadership. Education is sometimes required to attain credibility and credentials. Many of our professions require a certain amount of training, a certain amount of education in order to attain that credibility or those credentials. But here's one reason why education is so essentially important. Even if we achieve our goal, once we've achieved our goals, a good education, sound thinking, can help us to maintain our accomplishments. Every day you can read in a newspaper how another athlete or another politician or another entertainer went right down the drain. They did something that destroyed their lives. Here they worked hard to go all the way to the top, to achieve recognition in their art, recognition in their trade. They worked very hard to become considered one of the best. And because, and please excuse my expression, because of being stupid and lacking education, they make a mistake that costs them either their wealth or costs them jail time or does something to inhibit and hurt their lives and hurt their careers. So education is very important. A complete education develops the mind, the body, and personality. It guides you to be proactive and to form your own opinions and values rather than just listening to the talking heads and mimicking the opinions and values of people that are in the media. A good education makes life more fulfilling and more rewarding. There are two missing R's in our culture that's mentioned in the book. Number one is reasoning. Unfortunately, both of these are completely gone from our educational systems, especially high schools. The first one is reasoning, and that is the ability to realize that we live in a universe that is governed by the law of cause and effect. And that law says that if you make so many poor decisions, they're going to come back and they're going to blow up in your face, and they're going to hurt you, and they're going to hurt your loved ones. Reasoning teaches us to put pieces of information together to reach and make a sound, balanced decision. That's one of the two R's that is now missing in our culture. And again, that's because of the victimization mentality, because it's always someone else's fault. The second one is responsibility. Don't allow yourself to become a casualty of victimization. It's an insidious attempt to keep you dependent on someone else. In essence, it's saying subliminally that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. It's saying because of your skin color or your ethnic background or your religion or your gender, you just don't have what it takes. So therefore, we'll keep you dependent because you can't do it on your own. So please avoid that victimization and accept personal responsibility. Principle number 3 is maintaining your health. I won't spend a lot of time here because there's so many excellent books written about creating a health program and exercising and eating right and all of those things. I will only say that our attitude towards health is similar to the way it is on a lot of things, and the way that we can find that out is to take a test to discover our locus of control. That is a test, and we're usually wired from birth to have either a strong internal locus of control, this is a personality orientation, or a strong external. A strong internal says that you can control or modify events and problems. You can do it. You can choose. A strong external says that what happens in life is due to time and chance, and you have very little or no control over those events. Here's an example of an actual question given on that personality orientation of locus of control. They say, choose one of these two. What do you believe? A, leaders are born, not made, or B, leaders are made, not born. If you chose A, leaders are born, not made, you have an external locus of control. You believe that somehow there's a DNA gene, that greatness is inherited through the DNA, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. You're either born to be a Churchill or you're born to be a Gandhi. But if you chose B, leaders are made, not born, you have a strong internal. You say people can grow into being leaders. People can change. People can make choices. People can learn. People can develop. People can step up to the plate and achieve greatness through leadership. And the reason that I bring this out here is we usually have one orientation or the other about our personal health as well. Maintaining your health is important to personal leadership because if you lose your health, it's hard to achieve your goals. If you're not feeling well, if you're struggling with particular biological issues, diseases, or whatever, and you're just not feeling good, it's hard to achieve all that you want to achieve. And yes, we've all inherited DNA, and within that DNA, through thousands of years, we have biological strengths and weaknesses, and we can't change our DNA, but we can take care of what we have. We can be proactive, and we can get good health care. We can influence the quality of life. We can be reading our bodies to know if something isn't right, to find out what's going on. We can be very proactive, and we can value our health no matter what level we're at, even if we are struggling with a chronic disease. We can try to maintain it the best way we can. Our goal should be to achieve and maintain a very healthy lifestyle. And this includes eating a healthy diet, composed primarily of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Have a regular exercise routine to strengthen your cardiovascular system. And of course, get a doctor's approval before you do that. And there are a lot of great books written on good foods and exercises, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on resources you can find at other places. Drink plenty of water to eliminate toxins. Get enough sleep and rest, which is a real problem for most Americans. Most of us are sleep deprived. Well, I'm going to give some final thoughts and then some assignments for the next webinar. Some final thoughts. You absolutely, positively are going to run into some rough spots and challenges after you create your personal mission statement and establish some of your goals. Don't get discouraged. Don't give up. That's part of the program. If it were easy, anyone could do it. So don't give up in your goals or get off your chosen path just because challenges arrive and obstacles are thrown up and it seems like people are against you. Winston Churchill once said that success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. So don't get discouraged. Even after you've done everything you need to do and you run into problems, you run into obstacles, you just stay on the right path and eventually you'll come out exactly where you're supposed to be. So that's very important because you will run into obstacles and challenges that will try to stop you from achieving your personal mission and stop you from achieving your goals. I've given you a handout called the Personal Checklist, and this is for your own self-analysis. It may help you in creating your personal mission statement, so I encourage you to go through it and check off the things so you can discover your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and I think it will help you to begin to create your personal mission statement. I've discovered in life that there are 3 characteristics of success. One is a positive mental attitude. This is so important. It's one of the 12 principles we discuss later. But I've noticed that people who look for ways that things can be done end up being successful. They tap inside their own mental powers and strengths rather than always looking for problems and limitations. They look for ways that things can be done rather than can't be done. They're also goal-directed. They know where they are today, they know where they want to go, and they have a plan to get there. And they're also self-motivated. They have the ability to wind up their own clock. And if they get discouraged, they either have a folder of inspiring statements or digital audio files or music that's important or special to them, and they know where to go and what resources to tap into to motivate and inspire themselves when they get down. Here are the assignments for webinar number 2. I'm going to ask you to read chapters 4 through 6 of Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit. That's pages 51 through 78. And secondly, I'm going to ask you to begin your personal mission statement. Look at the sample that I provided just to give you food for thought to get started. Remember, yours should be different. And I want you to work on those first 2 areas, the belief and values, and your family goals and mission. And next class, we will read what we have written so that we can all learn together and help refine our personal mission statement. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? Well, if you feel that you need to contact me, feel free to call. This is my cell number right here, 330-421-3969, or you can email me at gthomas@leadingtoday.org. Webinar number 2 will be next Monday at the same time, and I will leave you with a final thought by the late Steve Jobs. He said, "Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night saying, 'We've done something wonderful,' that's what matters to me." Well, thank you for attending the webinar this afternoon. All of you be sure to have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
We're beginning to discuss webinar number 2, which has the title, Getting Out of a Rut and Moving Your Life Forward. You may recall webinar number 1 and how I always like to start out by talking about our agenda so we all know where we're going and the direction that we're heading in. We'll start out with an icebreaker today. Then we will have a brief review of what we have learned so far through the first webinar. Then we're going to review our previous assignment, which was to take a look at the first 2 sections of the personal mission statement. I'm going to ask both of you to read to me what you have thus far. Then we have a class discussion question. We will talk about a particular question that I have in mind. And then we will look at the next 3 of the 12 principles of personal leadership: driving your life forward, utilizing your personal resources, and dealing with life's disappointments. So let's go on to our icebreaker for today. I forgot that before I give the icebreaker, I always remind you how to get the most out of each class, and that is to prepare in advance. Please complete any assignments given and to review materials. Actively participate in the webinars, avoid distractions, and doing other work at the same time, and respect the opinions and ideas of others, and learn, engage, and have some fun. So here is our icebreaker today. How many squares do you see? We'll begin with Judy. How many squares do you see, Judy?
18.
18, okay. How about yourself, Jill? 17. Okay.
Actually, 2.
Well, you both sense that it's a trick question, and that is absolutely correct. It is. Actually, there are a total of 30 squares.
Oh my gosh.
And the way it comes out, I got my little highlighter here, is obviously there are the 16 that we all obviously notice. Then there are 4 corner squares. If you take each corner like this, you end up with another 4 squares. There is 1 center group. If you do this here in the center group, you have another square. There is 1 outer perimeter, the broad outline of the entire square. I think we can call that a square. Let me do some erasing, and we'll take a look at some of the other ones here. Erase. There we go. Whoops. There. Now we're back. Go backward here. And there is 1 center top group, meaning if you do this here, that's a square. Also, that is a square, right? And then if you take a look, 1 bottom center of 4, so, and 1 right center of 4, meaning right here and right here. And if you put them all together, you actually have 30 squares. And here's the lesson. It isn't, it isn't to see how quickly we can just come up with the right number. There's a lesson behind this, and that is that things are not always what they first seem to be. Out-of-the-box thinking gives you the ability to see things and people as they really are rather than a first impression. I did something on the agenda that actually exists in most organizations. Did any of you catch on the agenda how and I didn't say it, but I wrote it, I said 16 squares? That was subliminal thinking. I basically was kind of priming you to limit your thinking. And that's the way that a lot of organizations are. They have ideas and policies and mindsets. Well, this is the way that it's always been. Or here, 2 + 2 = 5. And no one questions it because that's just the way it's always been accepted within the company or the organization. And the thing we need to realize is that out-of-the-box thinking allows us to see things as they really are, because usually the way things really are far different than our first impression. One of the difficulties we have as we leave childhood and we enter adulthood is that we lose our creativity. It diminishes. We lose our ability to play. Our culture and our world makes us become more serious about life, and that part is good, but unfortunately, developing the analytical side of our brain and forcing us to grow up also diminishes our ability to step back in a creative way and see things as they really are, rather than just the first impression we get from things. So now let's do a little review of what we talked about last time. We began by talking about personal leadership. Personal leadership is when you choose to seize control of your own life and your own path, knowing that a default mission statement will take over if you do nothing. And that default mission statement exists in our culture, and it basically, in a nutshell, says use other people, acquire some type of addiction to cope with life, and just go with the flow rather than determining your own choices. And the end result of that, unfortunately, is a life that is left unfulfilled. I am sure that the relatives of Whitney Houston are asking themselves some very serious questions this morning, because here was an incredible gift that she had. What a remarkable talent. But because she lacked some of these principles of personal leadership, unfortunately, she accepted a default mission statement that said, to cope with life, you need to take pills and you need to drink alcohol and you need to do those things, and those things, sadly, cut her life short. So personal leadership is when you create your own game plan for life. You build a mission statement that says who and what you are, what you believe in, and then you create active goals to achieve what your life mission is. And that's very important. We discussed principle number 1, which was the right visionary goals. You may recall how we mentioned that written goals are necessary to provide a blueprint for our future. I may have mentioned in the first webinar how Stephen Covey has so accurately said that everything is actually created twice. First, it's created in the human mind, and then it is physically created. And sure enough, the building that you're sitting in, no matter where you are, someone put that building down on blueprints first. That came to someone's mind, and they wrote it down. And then, as a secondary step, contractors came in, and they laid the concrete, and they put the carpeting down, and they built the walls and everything that's necessary for the building that you're in now. But we need to realize that it was a written goal. We call it a blueprint in the construction industry, was already there before the construction began. So we emphasize that written goals give us a sense of permanence, a sense of reality. They are our constitution to help us to achieve our mission statement. We also talked about how short-term goals are established as stepping stones to achieve long-term goals. Long-term goals sometimes may take 5, 15, 20 years to achieve, but when you break that big goal down into small digestible steps, it truly is achievable, and you keep encouraging yourself every time you check off and finish one of those short-term goals that are leading you someplace important. We mentioned how vision is a mental picture that prods and motivates us. It's an inspirational snapshot of a desired future. Someone mentioned to me a while back that he had a long-term goal to have a beach house in Panama City Beach, Florida. And I said, that's wonderful. I said, I want you to close your eyes. Now, you're walking along the beach. Can you hear the sea gently crashing against the sand? Do you feel the sun beating down on the back of your neck? Do you hear the seagulls squawking as they fly in the sky and as they walk on the sand? Can you see them pecking into the sand at the clams that are burying themselves in there? Do you have the faint smell of suntan lotion? Can you feel it? Does it touch your senses? Because when it does that, then it is a true vision, the kind of vision that will motivate you and drive you even when you're running into obstacles. We also talked about creating a positive affirmation, positive affirmations to repeat each morning, because those are a form of vision. And again, getting back to my statement from Stephen Covey, is if you want something good to happen in your life, it begins in your mind first. The positive affirmations tell you what good things you want to happen in your life. And once you believe that, once you start acting on that, then those things will begin to come true. So again, all things are created twice, the first time in the mind, and then they physically happen. We talked about a personal mission statement, what it does, why it works, how it defines what we value. It is our moral compass. It defines what we stand for, our belief system. Superman said that he believed in truth and justice and the American way. Well, what is our belief system? I mean, that's pretty good for Superman, but we're not Superman. We need to have our own individual, unique belief system. Next is, what is your essential mission in life? That's what a personal mission statement helps you to understand and appreciate. And what are your personal responsibilities? We're all adults. We have personal responsibilities. We are accountable to do certain things. So those are the reasons why we need a personal mission statement. We also reviewed that a personal mission statement helps us to answer the most important individual question that only you can answer. And that is, am I truly living or am I being lived? Am I making my own choices? Am I growing as an individual, or am I just bobbing and floating into the sea? Am I a player, or am I being played by my culture or by a default mission statement because I haven't made my own? Last time we looked at the 4 major areas of a personal mission statement. The belief and values, family goals and mission. Those were our assignments for this week. Career goals and mission, personal life goals and mission. And of course, all of you received a copy of this in an email a couple of weeks ago. We discussed why it is important. Those 4 areas are essential for us to complete a kind of mission statement that will excite us, that will motivate us, As I said last time, I encourage you to put your personal mission statement, to hang it on a wall when it is complete. If it's not too personal, even hang it on the wall of your office at work. And when you're going through difficult times, take it off the wall, review it, and remind yourself of what you said in your own thoughts about what is important to you, what your values are, what your personal family goals are, your professional goals for your career, what your personal life goals are, and it'll remind you of who and what you are as a unique human being. Also last time we talked about adding balance to our life, to redeem some time to do the things that are truly important to us. We talked about the high important payoff activities and the low important payoff activities. We discussed how to know which is which. One is very important. It's usually challenging, the hippos. It's usually risky. It's usually something of great value to us that we can't ask someone else to do. The lippos usually are of little value to us. Usually we can delegate them, and oftentimes it's just something we feel obligated to do. It's maybe an obsolete habit or a mindset. It might be a club we joined 10 years ago that we don't even go to the meetings anymore, but we've just never had the desire to drop out or whatever. And we talked about how we need to focus on the hippos and stop spending so much time on the lippos in life, to eliminate some of them. And you do that by learning to kindly say no to yourself, especially when you're distracted and you see yourself going into the lippos, and to kindly say no to others. Then we talked about principle number 2, which was continuous education. We reminded ourselves it gives us the knowledge and wisdom to reach our goals. It's so essential for us to have a good formal education, to be literate, and then also to realize that a continuous education throughout our lifetimes is essential. It helps us to prepare for achievement. We mentioned how sometimes it's a requirement to gain credibility and credentials. There are many professions in our culture that require a certain degree or a certain credentialing or license in order to do that type of work. Once we've achieved our goals, it can help us to maintain our accomplishments. It's a shame to work so hard to achieve so many good and wonderful things just to lose it all by committing an act or doing something that's foolish, doing something that's a lack of knowledge. We also mentioned how complete education develops the mind and body and personality, what we used to call in the old days as a liberal arts education, and it makes life more fulfilling and rewarding. We also mentioned how a good education guides you to be proactive, and it helps us to form our own opinions and ideas and values so that we simply don't parrot the opinions of the talking heads that we find on our media today in television or on the radio. Then we talked about principle number 3, maintaining your health. We emphasize the importance of keeping good health because, it's a shame to do so much work in creating a mission statement, to have the right goals, to get a good education, and then just to allow ourselves to be destructive with our health and not be able to achieve the things we want to achieve. Eat a healthy diet, primarily composed of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. We talked about the importance of a regular exercise routine that strengthens our cardiovascular system and our bones and our muscles. I encourage you to get a doctor's approval if it's been a while since you've been exercising. After we finish our personal mission statement, next time we will begin establishing goals. And one of the things that many of the attendees of this program in the past have established by coincidence is an exercise routine if they don't have one. Drink plenty of water to eliminate toxins, eat well, get enough sleep, and certainly get rest. So now we're going to stop a few minutes. We're going to make this a little more interactive. You had a previous assignment, and that was to begin creating your own personal mission statement. I sent you a sample for you to look at. I asked you to work on 2 areas, the belief and values and your family goals and mission. And let's see how we've done. Just focusing on the first portion now. Who would like to tell us what you created in your belief and values section of your personal mission statement? Any volunteers?
I'll go.
Okay, go ahead. Is this Judy?
Yes.
Okay, Judy, go ahead.
I, Judith Thayer, value health, independence, and personal growth. These values are important and necessary as they promote a positive mental attitude for me. Accordingly, I will eat healthier, seek answers within myself, and incorporate reading into my weekly schedule.
Okay, that's very good. Succinct. What I like about that particularly is if you have your other three sections succinct and to the point like that, that it will make it possible for you to hang that on your wall at home or at work, wherever you desire to have it. I mean, it's easy enough that you can review it and you can say to yourself, yep, that's who I am. That's who I said in my own words what my values are and what's important to me. So that's good. Thank you for that, Judy. Jill, how about yourself?
Okay. I, Jill Vanneman, will trust in my higher power and trust that each individual has a contribution to make. I will treat each person with dignity and respect and accept our differences.
Okay, I like that. That's good. I'm always amazed at how many variations we can come up with of the golden rule, and that is basically to treat other people the way that we would like to be treated with dignity, to be treated with respect, to hear us out, to have an open mind and at least hear what we have to say. And I'm always very pleased when I see belief and value statements that reflect the fact that we need to give other people space and dignity and respect them, even if we don't totally agree with them. So that's very good. A couple of excellent examples of the section on belief and values. I appreciate that. Now, the next area that we had was family goals and mission. Who would like to volunteer what they wrote down for their family goals and mission?
Well, I'll go first.
Wow, we have exciting volunteers here. That's awesome. We'll start out with Judy. Judy, go ahead and tell us what you got down there.
As a mother and significant other, I will seek to appreciate and enjoy every moment together, whether in person or by phone. I commit to pause whatever I am doing and take the time to fully listen and to be tolerant when my time is challenged. I commit to allow my personal life to take center stage over my professional life.
Okay. What I like about that is you say a couple of things in there that clearly define your values as a family, and that is that you're not putting your career above your family's needs. You state that very clearly in there, and that when people have something to say, it's time to stop and listen to them. And, that's good. That is very positive, and it reflects your family goals and your own mission, and that's excellent. Great job. Okay, Jill, what do you have?
As a mother, partner, and sister, I want each family member to feel loved by me for their uniqueness, and that I will love them for I will love them for who they are. I will communicate honestly and withhold anger and judgment.
Wow, that's also very good. It's basically allowing your loved ones to have space and to be who they need to be, and to demonstrate tolerance and patience towards them, and to give them unconditional love. So, that is good. Very good. We had some excellent examples of our goals today for the first two areas of the personal mission statement. And as you'll see later on, I'm going to ask you to work on the final two areas this coming week before our next webinar, which, by the way, will be 2 weeks from today, because next Monday is President's Day, and most of the attendees had that day off. So thank you for the work that you've done on your personal mission statements. All right, here's our class discussion question. This is a little bit out of the blue. It will require you to put on your thinking cap a little bit, but hopefully you read our reading assignment, which was chapters 5 through 7 of Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit. It was principles 4 through 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to ask you, what was the most valuable idea or concept you gleaned from chapters 5 through 7 of Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit, and how can you apply that lesson to either your life or your business, your career? Who would like to comment on that?
The one area I had not even thought about
Mm-hmm.
until I read it was how we speak to ourselves the majority of the time while we're not speaking to somebody else.
Right, self-talk. You got it.
And I have found, I mean, I never really put it into perspective, but I do find myself from time to time not saying to myself what I think I should, you know, in remarks. And so I found that quite interesting, and I thought, you know, that could be one place that I definitely could start thinking more positive and changing my outlook.
Sure. And, you know, that's one of the areas where using every morning, starting out with those positive personal affirmations, can be very helpful, because what you're beginning to do is, and that's a form of self-talk, by the way, obviously, what you're beginning to do by using those positive self-affirmations is you're beginning to reprogram your thoughts from a negative orientation, which we all have naturally, to a can-do. You know, I do have these qualities. I do have these capabilities. I do have these skills. I can do this. So that is so very important. Later on, by the way, as we wrap up the webinar today, I'll be talking about thinking processes, some things we learned from behavioral science studies that I think you'll find interesting, because it also ties in well with self-talk. All right, self-talk, a very good example. Thank you for that. All right, it's your turn.
Well, I sort of was struck, the reprogramming your thinking, sort of the same thing. I've learned about positive affirmations, and I've tried to do affirmations in the past but haven't been very successful at doing that. So it's good to get that sort of reaffirmed, and that it can actually work in my life. So that's something I want to try out.
Sure.
Again, and recommit to doing that.
Let me give you a hint. It'll take a minimum of 30 days before they begin to have a positive effect. But so you've got to do it consistently for a minimum of 30 days before your mind accepts it.
Okay.
If I can digress for a minute here. Our mind is so wired that when we receive new knowledge, our first response is to be skeptical. Our subconscious closes and shuts down when we're presented with information that we don't believe or that's brand new, that we have never heard before. Studies show that new information has to be repeated numerous times, at least 6 times or more. And eventually what happens is that subconscious gate opens and eventually allows that new information to be accepted by our minds, where our minds say, yes, that's okay. I'm beginning to accept that as true. I'm beginning to believe that. And it takes spaced repetition for that to occur. And that's regarding anything that's new. So it's going to take a while for you to be doing those positive affirmations routinely and faithfully. And in time, your subconscious, which right now is saying, no, this isn't true. I don't really believe this about myself, or I don't believe I'm capable of doing this. It's going to take a while before your subconscious will open up that gate and say, okay, I accept it. This is true. This is valid. This is right. This is who Jill really is. So stay faithful with it. Stick with it. It really does work. Absolutely, positively works. Okay, let's begin talking about principle number 4. Principle number 4 is driving forward. And the reason this principle is so important is that so many people live their lives looking in the rearview mirror. You can't focus on going forward and keep your eyes on the road forward if you were trying to drive while looking in the rearview mirror. And so many people are living their lives through guilt or shame or regret from mistakes that they've made in the past. And the problem with doing that is you cannot change the past. The past is history. It's done. So don't relive history. Don't relive problems and guilt and shame and mistakes made in the past, because you can't affect the past. But you know what? The decisions that you're making today will absolutely affect tomorrow. So rather than looking behind us and living in the past, we need to be driving forward, because the decisions that we make today will affect our whole lives tomorrow. So that's why this principle is so very important. If you were to look at the American Heritage Dictionary, here are the definition of those two words: drive, to push, propel, or press onward forcibly. In other words, you on purpose are going forward. Another definition: to carry through vigorously to a conclusion. So you finish it. And then the word forward is located ahead or in advance of, relating to, or done in preparation for the future. So this principle is so very important, because too many people, again, live in the past. In their minds, in their thoughts, that's what they dwell on. So what is driving forward? Well, driving forward is realizing that we create a personal vision that fuels our drive, that excites us, that motivates us. And that's a number of things. That may be through personal affirmations. It may be through a picture envisioning some great goal that we may want to achieve. It may include something physical that you put in the corner of your desk that reminds you of some great goal that you have established. It may be some special music that excites you. It may be something that touches one of your senses that motivates you forward to reach your goal and ultimately to complete your mission in life. So it's a forward momentum that is determined to go over, under, around, or through obstacles, because it is being propelled forward through your beliefs, through your drive, through the visionary aspect you have of your whole purpose. It's the ability to push yourself through difficult situations, and we will all run into difficult situations. We will all be faced with obstacles as we try to achieve our goals and as we try to complete our mission. And again, it's important to mention that it's not negatively or constantly looking into the past to relive events or experiences. I do personal coaching with a number of executives, and it always strikes me how many of them, by the statements they make, are constantly reliving negative experiences from the past. And what happens when we do that? Well, we think about it and we relive it all over again. We get aggravated. Our blood pressure raises. We say to ourselves, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda said this or that in that situation. And again, that has no value any longer in our lives, except to learn from a mistake, perhaps, but then to learn that lesson and stop reliving it and to move forward in life. Another great thing about driving forward is that people will respond to your example. If you are a team leader, if you are the head of a department, if you have managerial responsibilities, when other people see that you are excited about what you're doing in the office, in your business, and that you have the ability to go through obstacles, to find answers to perplexing problems, and that you are a person of vision, other people will want to join your cause. That's true whether it's in an office environment and you're a supervisor. It's true whether you're the head of the little league or the cheerleading squad in your community. People like to follow leaders who have enthusiasm and drive and excitement and purpose in their lives about a goal that they want to achieve. So these are all reasons that driving forward is so important to us. Here's a quote from Dr. Randy Pausch. He was an incredible individual. Unfortunately, he died as a very young man of pancreatic cancer. I think you can find his complete presentation, which was a college presentation to students and faculty, called The Last Lecture. I believe you can find that on YouTube if you search for it. But here's what he said, and this is so true. The brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. The brick walls are there to stop the people who don't want it bad enough. It's to stop the people who think they are entitled. It is to stop the people who don't have the drive to do something with their lives, who want to live in the past or want to make excuses and blame others through victimization. Those are who the brick walls are for. So that's why, again, this principle is so very important. It will give you the idea and the understanding that it takes drive to achieve our goals. And yes, I can assure you, you're going to run into a lot of brick walls. But realize, as the doctor says here, why those walls exist. Because you certainly can either drive through those walls or go above them or around them or under them. But if you have enough drive, you can certainly get through those walls. Then there's principle number 5, which is utilizing your resources. This is important because to solve problems, to solve obstacles, to get through those brick walls, we need to be able to reach deep down inside of us to tap into resources oftentimes that we may not even know that we have. The first area is mental agility. I mentioned earlier how we have a problem as adults, and that oftentimes through the process of maturing and growing into adulthood, we lose our creativity. We lose the excitement that comes from play. But it takes mental agility to solve a lot of problems, and it's a resource that we often don't tap into. It forces us to put on our cap, our little imaginary thinking cap. It requires us to step out of the box. It requires us to ask the question, well, what if? And not just to assume that there are 16 or 17 squares, but to look at something intently and say, well, what if? This could be a square. Oh, down here, this also could be included as a square. And also another thing that mental agility does is it helps us to be open-minded. In other words, it gives us the desire to hear people out and listen to them. Now, I might add, it's okay to hear someone out and to define through your own value system that you don't agree with them. That's fine. That's what your value system is for. But at least I encourage you to have the mental agility, to have the listening skills, to hear someone out and listen to them and try to understand where they're coming from. And if after all that you decide that it's not part of your value system, that's okay. But mental agility says, I'm going to ask the what-if questions. I'm going to step beyond my present thinking and consider a few other things. Anyone have any questions on that part?
Nope.
No?
Okay. The next area are physical resources. This includes personal energy, excuse me, and one reason why we need to stay in good health and take care of ourselves. It includes the ability to respond quickly, because indeed, there are times in life when opportunity knocks only once, and there are times when that opportunity is only going to last for a short period of time. Another area that we often lose sight of the importance of are technological tools. A recent survey showed how the average person knows 20 to 25% of Microsoft Word and even less of Microsoft Excel. So here you have this powerful software program, and the overwhelming majority of people who use it basically learned enough to get by. I mean, most of us, unless we had intensive training on Microsoft Word, we played with it until we learned how to type something, until we learned how to check the spelling, save it as a document, and maybe do some minor formatting. But the truth is that there is incredible potential. There are wonderful resources available in technological tools, and usually we don't tap into their potential. We learn just enough, and then we stop learning. So another way that we can tap into our personal resources when we're confronted with a problem or an obstacle is look for the potential in the tools that we already have. Look to history. History indeed does repeat itself. If you're facing problems, the problems you're facing are not really any different than the problems that people have faced for the time of human history. History does repeat itself. You can look into biographies, you can look at the examples of other people, and you will see they ran into the same kind of obstacles. They had the same kind of challenges and problems that we face. So that can be a resource. And also research. There have been so many studies and surveys and things done that can help us to solve problems, that can help us to discover things that we don't understand. Powerful tools like internet search engine, Google, and other things that literally have changed the way that we think as human beings. It is a powerful physical resource. So use that as you try to overcome problems and obstacles and brick walls. Another thing that we lose sight of oftentimes is the network of people that we know who have knowledge that we don't have. It can include our friends who have different talents. They might work in different areas of business. Former coworkers, maybe someone who worked, if you face a problem at work, someone who used to work where you work and moved on. You can probably give them a call confidentially and say, did you face this kind of a problem, and how did you work on it, or how did you solve it? A mentor. Everyone needs a mentor. I have at least a couple of mentors. Mentors are people that you can call, that you respect, that you can ask them about anything and know that it'll be held in confidence. You can tell them about something you're struggling with. You can ask for their advice. And the kind of person you can call and say, this is my perception. Am I nuts, or is there something I'm missing here? And someone who will care for you enough to tell you if you're nuts, or to tell you if you're on track. And then there are business groups. Oftentimes as a resource, there are groups like the Chamber of Commerce. There might be associations or organizations within a specific skill that we have. But this, again, is a valuable network of information and people to help us to overcome the obstacles we may face. In tapping on our personal resources, I want you to consider looking into your strengths. Lean on a strength. If you're analytical by nature, then certainly use those analytical skills to look at something objectively. If you're very personable, or if you're inquisitive, if you're detail-oriented, then take the time to use your strengths in order to overcome an obstacle. For example, if you're detail-oriented, write a list. One side pros, the other side cons. Try to objectively look at the situation or the problem as it exists and use your skills as a detail-oriented person to analytically figure out where you're at and what you need to do. But you know what? And this, a lot of people miss this. Leverage a personal weakness in your life. You may recall in the book how it talked about Phyllis Diller. She perceived that her personal weakness was her looks, and she found a way to make a very lucrative career out of humor, out of just poking fun at herself, self-depreciating humor. And I've used that a number of times in my career. I'll tell you an approach that usually works. If you're faced with a problem, you need information, or you need help with something you're not very good at, if you go to a person who is good at that in a humble way, and I've said, hey, I'm sorry, I just don't get this. It's the other part of my brain. It's the shriveled part of my brain that needs to be able to do this. And the person laughs. I create a joke. And most of the times the person ends up saying, because I've developed empathy in them, they say, let me help you with this. I've even had a few situations where the person said, let me do this for you. Because I used humor, I went to them with a humble attitude. I admitted my limitations. And out of a sense of empathy, they said, hey, not a problem. That's what I'm here for. Let me help you. On the other hand, if we have a reputation of being cocky or arrogant or a know-it-all, and we go to someone and we ask for help, that person's probably going to say, at least to themselves, well, if you're so smart, you figure it out yourself. So if you have a personal weakness, and we all do, leverage it using humility and humor in order to get the help that you need. And you will be amazed at how helpful people usually want to be in that kind of a situation. So tap into your resources, but realize there does come a time when, yes, after we've done all the research and after we've achieved some sound input, we've listened to a lot of people, and we've talked to mentors, we've talked to people in the know, and we listen, and we analyze, and we review the alternatives. What happens if I make this decision? Will this happen? And etc. There really does come a time when we need to make the decision. That's a problem with a lot of people. They are terrified to make decisions because if they're afraid they may be wrong. And their self-esteem is so low that the thought of being wrong destroys them. It eats at them, so they won't make a decision. But remember, another principle is outlined in the book, and that is that if you make a decision and it's wrong, you oftentimes will have the time to change that decision, to tweak it, and to make that decision work. But if you wait to the very last minute to make a decision, and then that decision is wrong, then you're in serious trouble. So eventually, do your due diligence, tap into your resources, but don't be afraid to make a decision. Principle number 6 is dealing with disappointments. We positively, absolutely, will have disappointments in life because that's part of being human. Everyone experiences disappointment. Everyone gets discouraged at times. And of course, when this happens, it's a good time to review your mission statement, because if we did the right things in creating a mission statement that encourages us and inspires us, it will help to read it. It will make us feel better. It will reorient ourselves, and we'll say, yes, this is what I'm all about. I'm going to get through this. The problem with being really disappointed or dealing with some despondency in life is that we assume that these feelings will last forever. And they should depart within a few days. If it is ongoing, if you have a deep depression or discouragement that lasts more than 2 weeks, then I strongly encourage you to seek professional medical treatment. There are a lot of things that a healthcare professional can offer you. Some of them are just simply a good combination of herbs that can naturally get your chemical balance in line and pick up your spirits to the way they should be normally. And in the worst case scenario, they have some very effective treatments today to help serious bouts with depression. But again, for most of us, it will not be clinical. Don't assume the feelings of just being down are going to last forever, and there's a tendency to do that. They should actually depart within a few days. The normal symptoms of discouragement, disappointment, include a lack of energy, disrupted sleep, receiving little joy from things that normally we're excited about, lacking concentration, upsetting thoughts. Oftentimes we're aggravated, we're irritable, we might become emotional for very little reason, or a general feeling of melancholy. These are the symptoms of just normal human discouragement. Hang in there. We'll talk about in the next slide some things we can do, but realize that these are all normal symptoms. There are some things that can aggravate the situation, some things that can be contributors to being discouraged or despondent or even depressed, and that is a lack of sleep can contribute to it, an overwhelming sense of guilt or shame, a chemical imbalance, lack of exercise, lack of sunshine, a poor diet. These are all things that can contribute to that feeling. So what should we understand? What should we realize about this? Well, first of all, understand that some of the greatest leaders in human history suffered from despondency and depression. Winston Churchill, as great as he was, had a number of periods of his life that he called the black dog, in which he spiraled into depression for weeks on end. Yet he isn't remembered for his depression. He's remembered for all of the great things that he did, including galvanizing the British people to endure and eventually win World War II, be part of the victory of World War II. Thomas Jefferson had severe migraine headaches and oftentimes was very discouraged. His wife died when both he and his wife were young, and after his wife died, he went into an area for 2 to 3 weeks in which he even mentioned to family members that he considered taking his own life. Yet no one remembers Thomas Jefferson for those episodes in his life. They remember him for the wonderful things that he achieved because he just kept doing what he needed to do, and eventually the discouragement passed. So again, remember, they will not last unless they're clinical. They'll go away within a few days. One of the things that we can do in helping us to prepare for the disappointments in life is to maintain a strong value system and a deep sense of purpose. This helps us to sustain what we're going through during these periods, like a farmer storing up food for the winter. The time to prepare for periods of life in which you'll be discouraged is when you're on the mountaintop. If when you're on the mountaintop, you know what your values are and you are preparing your life, you are using vision, you have goals, you have your life in order, then that will sustain you when you go through the valleys of life and the obstacles and the pressures and the doubts enter your mind. It will help propel you through the valleys in life and keep you going forward. Again, much like a farmer storing up food for the winter time. So don't get discouraged. As you do go through disappointments in life, realize it's natural. Realize the feelings should go away in a few days, and maintain your values and stay on the right track. Remember that time has a way of turning a lot of perceived failures into successes. A number of years ago during the Great Depression, there was a crop failure in California. The grapevine shriveled up. Grapes were worthless. Well, one farmer, he was pulling grapes off of his little cluster, and he just decided to chew on one of these little shriveled up skins, and it was kind of sweet. So he sent them to a friend of his who marketed them as Peruvian delicacies. And we've all been eating raisins ever since. So you see, what appears to be a failure today, in that case, in the analogy of crop failure, has a way of turning into something different through the process of time. Take a long-term perspective on life and our events, and when you're going through a period of disappointment, don't view things only from right now, because that is an incomplete and it's a distorted view of life. Take the long-term perspective on your life and the things that you're going through. Also, realize that personal struggle and overcoming self-doubt is the fertilizer of achievement. I have discovered in the biographies that I've read of a lot of wonderful people and a lot of people that I know, that old saying that it's darkest before the dawn is often true. I've seen many cases when people go through a severe personal trial just before they have a major breakthrough in their lives. So realize struggle and overcoming self-doubt is the fertilizer for the next step of growth. Take a mental break for a few days. Do some things that you usually enjoy if you're going through a time of disappointment. And it's also very helpful to do something good and positive for another human being, because it helps us to get our minds off of ourselves. Now I'd like to give you some final thoughts and our assignments here as we wrap up webinar number 2. This ties in a little bit with what we were talking about, self-talk. Here's what we learned from behavioral scientists regarding our own thinking process. 2 major influences on how we think and our attitudes and perspectives in life. One is genetics. That is certainly true. I have 3 daughters, 3 adult daughters, and I can tell you that every one of them came out of the womb with different personalities. One is very intense, a type A personality. The very next daughter was laid back and relaxed. Nothing bothers her. The third child is like somewhere in between. So genetics does play a part. But environment also plays a major role in our lives. As Dr. Shad Helmstetter has said, By age 18, we've been told no 148,000 times. In contrast, we've been told yes. Well, in my case, I'd probably been told yes at least 3 or 4 times by the time I was 18. And here's what Dr. Helmstetter says. 70% of our self-image is programmed by age 6 and 95% by age 14. I want you to think about that. Before we enter the horrendous teenage years, 95% of our self-image of who and what we think we are has already been developed. And here we are entering some of the most difficult years of our lives when a major wrong decision can affect our futures. So it's important for us to understand our thinking processes. And most people fall into one or two categories. Most of us lean towards one of these two extremes. We are either reactive thinkers or we're creative thinkers. And here's the difference between the two. Again, this is from behavioral scientists. Reactive thinking is about 80% of the general human population. It tends to be resistant to change, finds reasons why it can't do things. They tend to be poor listeners, avoid responsibility, feel they have no control of things or events. They tend to have lower self-esteem, and they're devastated when they make a mistake by failure. On the other hand, there are creative thinkers. They tend to only be about 20% of our general population. They're more open to change. They have a can-do oriented personality through a combination of genetics and their environment. They're good listeners. They accept responsibility. They feel like they're in control of things in their life. They tend to have higher self-esteem. And when they make a mistake, and they grow from their mistakes. They look at it as a learning experience, not something devastating. And here's what it means for leaders, for people that run companies or manage departments or work with a group of people. It means that up to 80% of the people we meet have a fundamentally negative orientation due to poor self-image, and they will instinctively spend a tremendous amount of time trying to keep others from seeing their weaknesses, from seeing the weaknesses that they see in themselves. And the way that they do this, the way that they mask these weaknesses they see in themselves, is they try to find something wrong with someone else or a circumstance or a situation. That's what negative orientation does within our heads. Again, all good reasons why we want to have positive self-affirmations, why we want to have a positive vision, and also why we want to create our own personal mission statement. Since reactive thinkers far outnumber creative thinkers, they have the ability to overwhelm others or a culture, like a business, a department, a community, and to maintain a negative environment. So here's what leaders do. This is a major role of an effective leader. Leaders recognize this reality, and the reality is that reactive thinking predominates. Leaders recognize this reality, and they work energetically to maintain a positive can-do environment. That's a full-time job for an effective leader, to be a counterbalance to reactive thinking within the workplace, or within our own homes, or within our communities. Okay, here's our assignments for webinar number 3. I'm going to ask you, and I will send you an email reminding you of these things. Please read chapters 7 through 9 of Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit, pages 80 through 108. Continue on your personal mission statement, your career goals and mission, which was the 3rd section, personal life goals and mission, and I will email you something that I'm going to ask you to complete before the next webinar called The Circle of Life. It will take you probably 5 to 10 minutes to complete that exercise, and I encourage you to do so for me, please. So as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. Also, remember that the 3rd webinar will not be this coming Monday. It will be Monday, February 27th at the same time, since many will be off next Monday for President's Day, and I'm so jealous of all of you that I can't stand it. But have a wonderful President's Day. And then finally, a final thought by Henry Kissinger, who was an extremely talented man, a recognized leader, former Secretary of State. He said that people do great things by focusing on their possibilities, not by dwelling on their limitations.